All right, what's up, everyone? So this is going to be an explanation and cause and fix and all that stuff, whatever, to my Razor. So I do have a 2018 Turbo Razor, and a lot of the parts are similar between a lot of the years. But as you can see, she's up on jack stands, lower ball joints out, axles out, so you can kind of put two and two together there and guess kind of what's going on. So let me flip you around. All right, so you guessed it right. My front diff is out of the car. I think I have a reason why this thing was failing. I picked some brains over at Sandcraft and just use a little bit of common sense here. But so the way this thing is constructed and put together, you have your output hub here, and then here's another output hub. This is your assembly, and you have your roll cage and or your sprag, depends on who you're talking to, and that goes on like so. Actually, I think this side goes like that, and then you put this guy like so. So now this is the center part of your differential, right? And in each one of these slots that clip into each one of those H clips is a roller bearing. And each one of these rollers pops right into that guy. So now you can imagine all my rollers are in here. They won't stay in, so I'm not going to try to put them in. And this whole assembly goes into, and I'm not going to do it because it's kind of heavy and I don't want to be dropping stuff all over the place, but imagine that the hubs are still on here. Then it goes into your ring gear. And we'll leave these guys alone for a second. We'll put it like that. So now they're in your ring gear. And I forget the orientation. I believe it's up the other way. Because this side actually would be this way, like this, right? So just imagine it's the other way. You know what? Let's just flip it so you can get a good visual of what's going on. So it's like this and like this. And you have your output hub assembly in the center of that. Now, on top of all this stuff, I already took my pin out. My pin is somewhere. Here it is. So the pin that was in this ring gear is right here. Just get a new one. And then you have your spring that will go on like so. Now, when your spring's on there on the pin, it will be crossed over like so, left over right. And then imagine that pin holding it like that. So you got it like that. And then you have your spring retainer. Your spring retainer, there's a pin right there. There's the only pin on this whole thing. Goes on this like so. You can see how the pin just went down in there. There's the pin. Goes down like that. And it goes in between that crossed over spring you just put together. So now you have a little bit of tension, and it's not going to go one way or the other. Then you have your armature plate, or whatever you want to call it. It's called different things depending on who you're talking to. And you're going to drop it in like so. So you have these little cutouts right here. They're going to grab onto your spring retainer, and then it drops down onto your sprag like so. Now, when you actuate four-wheel drive on this particular side, you're going to have this side of your diff. And inside of this part right here that has all this conformal coating and all that stuff on it is an electromagnet. Now, when that electromagnet actuates, it's not going to allow this to spin at all. So you can imagine everything's kind of spinning around, dandly, whatever. This ring gear is just spinning around this whole assembly, totally fine. Essentially, everything's kind of staying in place for the most part, but it's all spinning freely. But when you put power to this guy and it wants to hold your armature plate in place, that means it won't move. So if you wanted to test this thing out, you can apply 12 volts to this, and it's going to hold this plate, and you're not going to be able to spin it one way or the other. So if you wanted to test this thing, your electromagnet, you put it like that, energize it with 12 volts, and you shouldn't be able to spin it like that. Locking your armature plate is what's locking your four-wheel drive, because you can imagine all those rollers that are in here and your whole output hub assembly. These guys right here are in the center of that. When it wants to cock itself one way or the other, it's going to push those roller bearings up into one of these peaks. And you can see that this ring gear has peaks and valleys. And let me take this out so you can get an idea. Peaks and valleys. There's a valley, there's a peak. There's a valley, there's a peak. When you roll the bearings up to one of the peaks, it's going to want to bind up because it's pushing against these springs. And then it's going to push against the outer part of your output hub assembly. And you can see where those rollers have locked themselves numerous times, many times, to lock this whole hub assembly in place. This ain't going nowhere. But technically it is, because now you're locking your ring gear and your whole output hub assembly as one. They're all going to work in unison. And so that is how you actuate your four-wheel drive. At least that's my understanding, by the way. Or for my, whatever. It's my mind thinking, whatever. So I was having a lot of popping noise. So that's kind of the theory of how this thing works, right? And I was getting a lot of popping noises in my front end. It was actually a banging noise, like a really loud banging noise. Kind of like a hammer pounding on your frame of your car. So I'm going like, what the heck is going on? I'm not sure what the heck to do here. I think it's something's going out or whatever. I'm going to try to organize here real fast. So anyway, I was out at Glamis Guys Trip, and I ended up, it went from a popping noise to a really fast ratcheting noise. And then essentially I was losing all my four-wheel drive. So I'm going like, what the heck is going on? It's just like slipping. So as I disassembled this thing, I started kind of digging into, I was asking people, how does this thing work, and blah, blah, blah. And now I got the whole concept of how this thing works. And I think I'm pretty sure I narrowed it down to why it was four-wheel drive. I was losing four-wheel drive, and what got damaged, what I need to replace, and all the above. So here we go. So we're flipped around again. Now, when the armature plate locks into place and wants to hold your sprag in place and lock it up against those peaks right there so it pushes against your output hub, the forces on that eventually start doing some damage to your armature plate. Now, it's not going to focus on here, I don't think. Come on. There we go. Come on. Now, you can kind of see it in the background, but it focused one time. Let's put my finger there. Let's see if it'll focus on my finger. Come on, dude. Anyway, you can see right there, it's not perfectly up and down. So basically, they're bent. It's bent that way to the right. And all of them are kind of like that. All of these fingers are like that. Now, this is stamped steel, apparently, blah, blah, blah. It's not strong and could be upgraded. Also, when it's grabbing your sprag, you can see here where it started gouging into all of these grooves. Now, I'm assuming that's somewhat normal because, well, when it locks, it's going to put forces on it and everything. But when you have that much material loss on this part, along with bent teeth on this thing, you can see how they're bent. It's going to want to just skip over all those points and essentially not locking in your four-wheel drive because it just keeps on slipping around. The teeth are never dropping in fully. They're just bouncing out, and you're never getting a full lock of your rollers against a peak of one of these peaks right here, and also against your output hub assembly. So I do have a whole kit coming from Sandcraft, and here's their instructions. I do have a specific one here, and it says 16A, so that'd be mine. That looks very similar to mine because I only have the one plastic spacer on there, and it also says on there 17 plus XP 1000 and the turbo. So I'll be following that configuration when I put my bearings back on. So this kit that I purchased from Sandcraft, I didn't get the bomb-proof kit, which I probably should have, but I got the bulletproof kit, and I don't really, it was kind of a significant price difference in a way, so I just went ahead and went with the bulletproof kit, because I also had other things I needed to purchase. Needed to purchase my transmission bearings, because it's a matter of time before those go out. So I wanted to make sure I did everything before next season. We're at the beginning of summer now. It's the beginning of June. It gives me ample time to get all this stuff done, and I just didn't want to pour a whole bunch of money into this front diff. It's really not really necessary. Just keep in mind, I am running 32 by, I don't know what size these things are. These are, I know they're 32s, but I don't know the width. Let's see, right here. 32 by 10 15s. 10 inch wide, 32 inches tall. Truck tires. I mean, these are Maxxis Liberties. These are heavy tires. On a beadlock. So, you know, beadlocks are also a little on the heavy side. It's a lot of forces to be putting on these components. Now, I have been running these tires for about 3 seasons. Out of the 7 years I've owned this car, well, almost 7 years now. So let's just say 6 years I've owned this car. Half of its life it's had 32-inch tires on it, running in the dunes, running over in rock crawling, stuff like that, high-speed desert stuff, all kinds of stuff. So the fact that I got that many miles, 2,600 miles or so, that many years out of the stock components, means that Polaris did an okay job. They upgraded some of these components in the past and made them somewhat beefy. This is not a RZR S a situation here where I think their internal components might be a little bit better, but it's still okay. So I figured if I just go with the bulletproof kit, I should be fine. The bomb-proof kit, yes, it has a little bit extra beefiness to it, but what I'm getting is a new armature plate. It's going to be beefier. It comes with a new spring retainer. I believe it's billet on the new one. A little bit beefier, right? Holds everything in place. And obviously a new sprag. And all the components are just a little bit better alloy. And should hold up to the abuses just a little bit better. I will be reusing my H-clips as long as all of them push my rollers back out. If I have a few of these H-clips that don't push them back out, not a good thing. You want to be able to, you want your roller to, when you push it in, it should just pop right back out. It shouldn't stick in there. Let's just say that. So I will be trying to reuse all of these and all of my H-clips in my new sprag. The kit also comes with new bearings for your output assembly. So output hub assembly, you're going to get 2 new gears. This one feels so good. I use nothing but the best oils, guys. Maxima drive oil up in the front here. As you can see, I have just like, it looks so good in here. And this bearing, not too shabby either. This one, I'd say that one's kind of done. So we're going to go ahead and I'm replacing all the bearings and everything. I will have to probably purchase a shop floor press because I don't have one, and I'm not going to try to do this all wonky. But I will be getting a press of some sort to do all this. And my next issue with this whole thing is I did have some leakage on my output hubs. Now I have the older version of these output hubs, and for some reason right after I bought my RZR, they updated these hubs, and Polaris won't do a goddamn thing about it. I swear, I've called them. I don't know what to do. They say I have to go through a dealer, and they have to do this Ask Polaris thing and fill out a form and see if they'll do it for me and blah blah blah. More than likely, Polaris is going to just give me the middle finger. So, and my dealer I go to, whoever. So what's happening is these older versions of these output hubs, they have freeze plugs, right? Well, this freeze plug is I don't know what the material is, but it doesn't sometimes seal good. And what happens is you get seepage, and it comes out in your splines, and then you get it all over your axle. So let me give you an example of what a little bit of a mess looks like. Now, I had no idea this was going on because it was so minimal. Otherwise, I would use my extended warranty, and I would have definitely made Polaris pay for it. But you know what? You snooze, you lose kind of situation. So I'll take that one. It's fine. So you could see my my axle there and the splines right there, and you can see where I mount the front diff, where my frame is and everything. There's a little bit of a mess in there, and I had no idea that was going on. So Messy right there. And I know both sides are leaking. I did clean this one up, but that's where the wheel hub is. But you can see this one is also a little leaky, a little dirty. So it's not the axles themselves. It's the hub assembly freeze plugs. I will show you the reason why they leak. So, or telltale signs of one that's bad. So this freeze plug down here, which I don't know how the heck I'm going to get this thing out, but anyway, see that thing turning? That should not turn. That should be in there tight, like this one. I can't get this one to move at all. So this one is pretty tight, yet it still slightly leaks. So there are some tricks of the trade. You can, well, first option would be to get the updated freeze plugs that Polaris uses, and they use a copper or brass style freeze plug, I believe it's brass, with a very, very, very thin O-ring. And you bang it back in there, should seal for a long time. The problem I'm having here is, if I wanted to go that route, or if I wanted to also go the route of pulling these old ones out and doing the old red Loctite, letting it, putting a bead on there, pounding it down, letting it dry, make sure obviously all the oil's cleaned out and everything. And that would be option number 2. But again, I'd have to pull the freeze plug out. Now, I have this little coupler in the middle here that holds both of my hubs, my two hubs in unison. So I'm not really sure how to get this freeze plug out now, because I don't want to pull this guy out. I don't want to upset any of the measurements here or the depth where it's set and everything like that. So option number 3 that I'm going to try to do, and I've heard online that it works pretty good. People do it while it's in all together in the diff, and they just do it on this side, but some people do it on both sides. I have this for reference. I don't think I'm going to use this stuff, but I had it laying around. It is black. It's RTV. It's a gasket maker. High flexibility for obviously your hot and cold situations. Oil resistant. And I don't care about that stuff. But the trick is, basically the theory is you take some of this stuff. Now, I clean all this up really good. I put a bead down in there. Really, really nice. All along that edge. Same deal in here. Try to get it under that lip. And then nice bead. I don't think I have to put it on the lip as long as it cures. And put it in there. Now, for safe measure, you can also put some down, like the guys that do it while it's on the vehicle and it's all in the diff already. Down here, put it down there, and make sure you give yourself enough room for your axle to fully seat its retention ring or whatever you want to call it in that groove, which shouldn't be a problem. So those are my options there. So this is basically part 1 of my situation going on. I know there's other videos out there of people pulling out their diffs, pulling them apart, building them back up with upgraded parts and everything. But it was really hard to find a video on people sealing their freeze plugs. And I'm not going to go buy this assembly. This assembly, they don't sell it a la carte. So you got to buy this whole assembly just like that. I think it comes with the sprag too. I'm not sure. You have to go look at the parts diagram. But it comes as a full assembly. It's like $500 something. And all I need is my freeze plug sealed. So no, I'm not spending $500 for Polaris's cheap, construction here and cheap engineering. Why they would use something like this? But I'm gonna try the RTV. I think it's gonna be best. I know people might be thinking, oh man, it's gonna get in your oil. It's gonna get all over the place. Well, not if the RTV's cured. And even if it breaks off a little bit, for the most part, it's sealed up in there. This is a pretty tight fit. I mean, it was suctioned together when it had a vacuum on it. When I first pulled this thing apart, I really, even right now it's got it might be cocked a little bit, but it's not an airtight seal. Oil's going to get in there, but not a whole lot. And just for reference, you guys saw my car and both of my axles. That is 6 or 7 years, almost 7 years worth of driving around and these things leaking. So I think I'm okay with using some RTV. And if not, and if it's a big deal and they still leak, whatever, I will try another option. It's not that hard to take all this stuff apart. It's really not that hard to take it out of the vehicle. The hardest part of taking this thing out of the vehicle is your roll pin. Anybody that's done this knows this roll pin can be a biatch. It's horrible. I use a 5/16 punch. I had to grind it down a few times because I was mushering the crap out of this. You can see where I had it stuck in there a little bit, so I used my vice grips to pull this thing out, and you can see how bad I was whacking this thing. So it drove it out. It just took a long time. Now, granted, my hand was something was wrong with my hand when I was doing this, so I could barely grip the hammer. So my wife came and helped me, but for the most part, anybody can do this. It's real simple, but like I said, this roll pin, it'll get you. It'll get you. My suggestion is if you can go get an air hammer, get a cheap one from Amazon, get a cheap one from Harbor Freight, and go get yourself a punch pin set for that air hammer, and then you can drive this out a lot easier, and you probably save yourself a little bit of headache, keep some of your sanity, all that stuff. So part one, guys, once my parts come in, I think they were missing one bearing. I ordered them almost 2 weeks ago, all this stuff. So and they're in Arizona, I'm in California, so it shouldn't take that long. They said I think they're missing one bearing, and once that bearing gets in stock, then they're going to ship it out. I believe that was yesterday, so we'll see. And once all that stuff gets in, and I get my press, I will maybe do little mini videos of me pressing in. There's a guy that does this already, so I might not do that. There's a guy that shows you how to press out the bearings and press them in and all this stuff and take that pinion seal out. There's already how-to videos on this stuff, but my video is more of my certain situation, reason why I tore this thing apart, the noises I was having, the symptoms the car was having, and all that kind of stuff, and what my theory is of what happened and why it's failing, and also the theory on how this whole differential works, how the four-wheel drive engages, and then also the weird thing with my freeze plugs on my output hub assembly. I have yet to find someone that has like a how-to on that, so I might do a how-to video on that one and show you how I'm going to smear that RTV. It's pretty straightforward. I'm telling you, you smear it just like caulking, on the top of your baseboards or something like that, or around your window. Very simple. But I might show that one. The rest of the install, I won't show it. I won't show the bearing stuff. I will show the parts I get and me installing them maybe. But for the most part, I'm going to leave the next video kind of short. But thanks for watching, guys. I know this was really long. I do ramble a lot, but I like to try to cross all my T's, dot my I's, and all that stuff. So I'll catch you in the next one. Later.